I sort of have a problem. I'm unfortunately one of those people who feels incredibly scatterbrained and distracted when I don't feel like I have my living space organized and or clutter-free. Maybe this isn't a unique problem, which leads me to believe some of what I'm going to talk about today may help others who have the same struggles. I think a healthy balance of practical steps as well as ways of thinking lead to the biggest differences. So that's what I'll be sharing in today's video. But first, if you're new to my channel, thank you for stopping by. Here we talk about minimalism, frugal living, tech, and things of that nature. So if that sounds good to you and you end up liking the video, be sure to like and please Spartan kick the subscribe button. Let's get started. The Ohio method. No, not the state, and no, not Japanese good morning. The Ohio method stands for only handle it once. And this ranges from things like decluttering, organizing, or getting a task done. When it comes to decluttering or organizing, when I pick up an item, I make it a point to put that item in its permanent location rather than setting it down temporarily just to have to deal with it later. Setting this rule for myself keeps me from spending more time than I should, straightening up, and it really just keeps me from spending too much time where I probably shouldn't. A perfect example is when I walk in the front door with my backpack. All I want to do is throw it onto the nearest surface, but knowing I'll have to pick it back up later to put it away is just really annoying. And that alone is enough to get me to put it away in its correct space right away. And when it comes to getting things done, a perfect example is with my emails. If I open up a new tab for my emails, I make sure to just take care of all the ones I need to respond to, even if I don't have a response ready in that moment. So this might mean spending a little bit more time than I initially had planned to do this, but ultimately, it's always better than having to come back to it later. Before I talk about the next thing on this list, I just wanted to thank the sponsor of today's video, Surfshark VPN. Using a VPN wasn't something I really took too serious, and it scares me how much I actually used public Wi-Fi to check emails and my bank account for so long without a VPN. I actually had this training at my current job where they sort of showed us how easy it was for information to be stolen when you use public Wi-Fi without protection. Surfshark VPN keeps my information safe on public Wi-Fi I frequently use, and aside from the security features it offers, I have some fun with it too. I actually used Surfshark VPN to get a slightly cheaper flight ticket earlier this year by disguising where I'm actually buying my ticket from, as well as allow me to watch some of my favorite shows that are only on Netflix UK. Shout out to all my mates in England. Isn't it, bruv? There's absolutely no risk in trying Surfshark as they offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. Use code TOTN for up to an additional 6 months free. This is a limited time Black Friday offer, so don't miss out on getting the better deal. I'll also have a link in the description box if you're interested in checking them out. Thanks again, Surfshark, for sponsoring this video. The 5-second rule. This point sort of goes off of the only handle it once rule in the sense of urgency. Something that I've learned doesn't really work for me is over-planning and over-preparing. The 5-second rule for me means starting something 5 seconds after deciding, if possible. This means if, for example, I know I need to start laundry or do the dishes, I will start that task literally within 5 seconds of deciding. And the reason for this is that it stops procrastination, as well as just spending too much time planning to actually do it, or when to do it. Because by the time I've started, the task is usually completed before I even realize it. Obviously, there's a time and place for everything, because certain things require a little bit more careful thinking. But I found this works especially well in routine tasks or habits I'm trying to make consistent. Ultimately, this created a sense of confidence in my decisions and stopped or at least slowed down the terrible overthinking habit I generally have. Create a burner email for junk. One of my favorite things to talk about is digital organization. And I definitely feel like a lot of people could use help with this. Something that I've personally done and that I found incredibly useful was to create an email address that was dedicated to non-important purposes. A lot of times when signing up for a free trial or just downloading an app, I was required to enter an email address. Afterwards, I would end up receiving emails for the service indefinitely until I unsubscribed. Several years ago, I created a burner email that's sole purpose is to be used for these non-important, non-essential emails. I know this might sound too simple, but having my main email only ever really get things I consider important and worth reading is just really nice. because I know when something does show up in that main email address, it's for the most part something I specifically want there because I provided that email address. Having my digital areas organized is arguably more important than having the physical areas organized, so I highly recommend trying this one out. Avoid unnecessary obligations. Right around the time I started making videos here, I found myself in this commitment to some work I really didn't want to be a part of. Simultaneously, I was reading the book Essentialism and learning how to say no to obligations. I just got to that chapter about saying no after the fact. It might sound silly and it might not sound like a big deal, but I think a lot of people can benefit from learning to say no and putting what you actually want to do in front of the feelings of others. And I know exactly what you're thinking. Oh, the guy who wears this sweater is afraid of hurting people's feelings? Well, to that I'd say a few things, like, I'm sorry for offending you, and is there anything I could do to fix this? I see the problem. My point in sharing this is that once I began to say no to obligations and no to just things I didn't want to be a part of, I found a lot more time and a lot less stress in my schedule. And while every other point on this list are ways to keep certain areas decluttered, this quite literally kept my life decluttered. I remember reading somewhere that if you don't make decisions for yourself, people will decide for you. And in my experience, that's very much the case. Overall, I think it's important to treat our time more valuable and be as frugal with your time as you are with money. Embrace enough over seeking the next thing. Now, this is something I still struggle with to this day, but definitely on a much less frequent basis. For the longest time, I was stuck in this loop of, once I have this, I can finally accomplish that. And this really was a perpetual loop. It caused me to never be content with what I had, and it held me back from doing things until I had what I thought I needed. Once I learned to be grateful for what I had, I really found this level of contentment I never before experienced. Since embracing and enjoying my current possessions, there have now been several times where I look at things I use on a daily basis, some of them really old, and really just feel that same joy I had when I first got it. My camera was a 4-year-old model when I got it, and now almost an additional 4 years later, I'm still as excited to use it as I was on day one. I think a lot of what caused me to seek out the next thing was boredom and comparison. A new model, whatever, would be coming out, and it was always highlighting the things the older model couldn't do, attempting to create this urgency to fix something I've already gone this long without. Unfortunately, these are consumer tactics that make us feel like what we have is outdated and needs to be replaced right away. Being content with what I have has ultimately led me to create more than I consume, and of course, saved me a lot of money. Anyways, these are just a few of the most effective ways I've kept my life decluttered. Ultimately, I'm just trying to live a more intentional life with less consumption and being less busy. Anyways, as always, I appreciate the time you spent here and I appreciate you watching. If you did enjoy this video and you enjoy this type of content, be sure to like and consider subscribing to my channel, and I'll see you next time.